Okay, Assalamualaikum and salam sejahtera everyone. I'm Rafidah binti Abbas representing our team members to present our topic on the influence of technology in tapping the full potential of Islamic tourism. So this would be our presentation outlines. And for the introduction, we know that Islamic tourism is a lucrative business and the industry or the sector is dominated by the millennials, and the next successor would be Gen Z and Gen Alpha. These segments rely heavily on online platform. Therefore, it is projected that Islamic tourism would generate $300 billion revenue from 230 million Muslim travelers by 2026. Okay? And it is also expected that the AI market will generate $15.7 trillion by the year 2030. Okay? Because the expenditures will be made digitally. However, according to the same source, the sector still remain untapped and there is a slow growth, especially after the COVID-19 pandemic. Therefore, it is essential for us to understand this market segmentation so that we can tailor our product and services to their needs and to ensure that the travel recovery is both sustainable and inclusive. Okay, so this would be the worldview of Islamic tourism. Okay, worldwide Islamic tourism. It is actually based on all Islamic foundation, including history, including culture, and so forth. Whereas for Islamic tourism in Malaysia, Islamic Tourism Center define Islamic tourism as any activity, any experience or indulgence in which we perform during our travel journey, in which it must be Islamically compliant and it needs to happen within an Islamic framework. Yeah. According to Crescent rating, Malaysia has been ranked the first or the top Muslim-friendly tourist destination over the decade ago. Yeah? And the criteria used by Crescent rating in this nomination include the level of safety in the country, the use of access to halal food and pray facilities, as well as the ability to cater to the needs of Muslim guests. And as for 2019, Malaysia managed to attract 5.3 million Muslim arrivals, generating 16.72 billion revenue. Okay, so this is basically the Islamic tourism in Malaysia back then versus now. So we can see that during its inception, Islamic tourism focuses more towards visiting mosques, whereas nowadays it covers a lot of travel activities, including MICE activity, meeting, incentive, convention, and exhibition, particularly on Islamic aspect. So for the literature review, as we have mentioned earlier, so ITC define Islamic tourism as tourist encounter and tourism related activity, event, experience, or any indulgence undertaken within an Islamic framework. Yeah. And according to Murphy, 2007, Malaysian DMOs employ liberal and moderate Islamic approach in their tourist activities. So this could be the factor attracting this segment, okay, this Islamic Muslim segment. Okay, other than that, there's a lot of effort conducted by our government, especially tourism, MOTEC and Ministry of Tourism, together with ITC. ITC is actually government agencies under MOTEC responsible for Islamic tourism activities. Okay. So, according to Olia and Alansi, organization must provide continuous training and ensure effective interaction between service provider and the customer. So these are basically the challenges of Islamic tourism in Malaysia that we found out throughout our article review. So basically, even though there's a lot of effort conducted by ITC and the government, we still Based on our Tourism Minister, Dr. Hajan and Shukri, so this sector still remain untapped. This could be the factor or the challenges that we are facing pertaining to Islamic tourism. So the first one is partial compliance or the acceptance from both the operators and the public due to misconception about what Islamic tourism is all about. Okay? And other than that, we need to understand that in Malaysia, most of the business operators are dominated by the non-Muslim, and some of these are quite insensitive or they actually are profit-oriented organization. Yeah? Other than that, another challenge include the insufficient data to show the sector's worth, because all this while we rely a lot on Crescent rating as well as travel barometer to provide the information pertaining to Islamic tourism worth. Yeah? And other than that, we also have the expertise or manpower issue, because earlier it is said that the industry requires huge manpower to segregate the product and service provision to both gender, because there need to be separation between both gender. And other than that, another challenges is the implementation and monitoring from the authority body. Okay, these are the literature review on technology influence. Okay, we can see that technology influence has been study on technology influence has been conducted firstly in tourism sector, and these would be the benefits based on these scholars. Okay. On top of the benefits, we can also see the disadvantages of technology, including cyber attacks, security breaches, as well as technology challenges to all the stakeholders due to insufficient knowledge and social influence, because they normally rely, or the internet users normally rely on their social circle in their decision making. Okay, based on the extensive literature that we have reviewed, we come up with this problem statement on why Islamic tourism is still in its infancy in Malaysia. So among other things include over-dependency on the government, individualistic approach. It is also said that the whole tourism industry in Malaysia is considered as lacklustre due to poor service culture, poor destination management, as well as outdated marketing strategies. These problems were outlined in the National Tourism Policy. Therefore, it requires the tourism stakeholders to leverage technology in order to stay resilient. So, based on the problem statement on the literature review, we come up with this research objective and research question. Our research objective include to investigate the influence of technology in tapping the full potential of Islamic tourism, as well as to discuss the extent to which technology influenced the potential of Islamic tourism. So this would be our framework. You can see that the construct, the technology influence is represented by perceived benefits and perceived risks. Okay, so these independent variables, the technology influence is represented by the independent variable, perceived benefits and perceived risk. For perceived benefits, it is measured by ease of use, perceived usefulness, social influence, as well as business growth, whereas for perceived risk, it is measured by cost, safety and security, customer satisfaction, social influence, in which the stakeholders may rely on their social circle in their decision making, as well as the ability to foster personal and professional networking with the assistance of technology. And other than that is obsolete technology. Yeah. Whereas for the dependent variable Islamic tourism is measured by the concept and operation. So these are our methodologies. So this is actually a secondary study. We actually present a conceptual paper, and the research context is obviously in Malaysia, and our unit of analysis is Islamic tourism stakeholders. Yeah, so for the data collection, this descriptive study actually employs online sources that we get from credential sources like Science Direct, Emerald, connectedpapers.com, and so forth, in which we get the information by using Boolean search. Yeah. Okay, other than that, and on top of that, we also complement the information from government blueprint and reports, as well as newspaper articles pertaining to the scope of study. Yeah, so these include Crescent rating, MOTAC website, Tourism Malaysia website, and report together with the Economic Planning Unit report. Yeah? So in terms of organization and interpretation, the information that we collected were grouped based on the identified construct, in which we wanted to measure the technology influence through the independent variables, namely perceived benefits and perceived risks, and our dependent variable Islamic tourism. Yeah? And as for data organization and interpretation, so all the data that we have collected were organized according to the variables measured, and we analyze them according to the significant importance in order to answer the research objective. As for the findings and discussion, we can say that we conclude that perceived benefits positively influence Islamic tourism stakeholders' adoption of technology, because we know that Islamic tourism main market is the millennials, and the next generation would be the Gen Z and Gen Alpha. Okay, it is also found that almost all tourism stakeholders in Malaysia are employing artificial intelligence, as simple as using the chatbot in their service provision, and also big data in its service provision, especially for airline industry, hotel industry, as well as other transportation sectors. There is also symbiotic relationship, which requires, this symbiotic relationship actually requires the stakeholders to cooperate and compete at the same time to stay competitive. And it is also uncovered that technology innovation and adoption in Malaysia tourism ecosystem is expected to increase its productivity of all sectors by 30% and also increase greater service quality. So these are a projection for the year 2030. Yeah. Other than that, we also found that our findings were consistent with other studies pertaining to technology influence in tourism I mentioned earlier. ICT, for instance, has leveraged technology in numerous aspects, including the introduction of Muslim-friendly accommodation recognition, in which 44 participative local and international hotel brands has been recognized. And other than that, the appointment of Islamic Tourism Center as nation-friendly tourism hospitality training provider, Muslim travel package, Muslim-friendly tour guide certificate, and other than that, collaboration with educational institution and private sectors collaboration in numerous aspects, including in research as well as MICE activities. Okay, for the second one, other than that, we also found that perceived risk is positively significant in influencing technology adoption, And the higher the perceived risk, the more vigilant the stakeholders will be. This is obviously uh, because technology investment requires extensive financial capacity. Okay? And it also may result to financial implication, especially if it involves litigation. Okay? Therefore, it requires greater understanding, strict implementation, and compliance from all tourism stakeholders. And understanding this perceived risk would enable the tourism stakeholders to provide early intervention measures by choosing the right technology adoption in addressing all the trade-off, all the Islamic tourism challenges, as well as in coping with the future trend. So as for conclusion, all Islamic tourism stakeholders must consider before adopting technology to enable tourism stakeholders to devise the right strategies incumbent to operate the Islamic tourism sector. Therefore, it is vital for tourism stakeholders to devise whatever strategies depending on the technology they choose to invest, enroll into the relevant training program, especially during the initial stage, so that the manpower would be provided with the relevant technique and relevant skills in order to rectify or in order to troubleshoot any problem. And other than that, to promote positive IT environmental adoption to ensure a resilient and sustainable business. Okay, and for the implication, we found out that the theoretical implication we actually helps to extend current literature in Islamic tourism, and for the practical implication, we actually helps future researchers to understand the current trends and prospective research areas that they may want to embark into. Okay, and on the supply side, understanding the projected Islamic tourism trends will enable the stakeholders to strategize and devise the best plan of action by choosing the right technology adoption and the possible consequences. Because we know that technology investment may also backfire the organization. Okay, other than that, for future suggestion, we would like to suggest future researchers to look into misunderstanding about Islamic tourism, and also the concept, and because the concept and operation are still unclear. Okay? And on top of that, since we only employ secondary research, it is highly recommended if future researchers would embark into quantitative study or into longitudinal studies. Okay? With that, I thank you and Assalamualaikum.